In this video, I'm going to be going over how I would live on $22 an hour in Nashville, Tennessee. This is not financial advice. The reason why I chose $22 an hour is because that is the median hourly wage in the Nashville metro area. $22 an hour in a 40-hour work week comes out to $880 per week pre-tax, or roughly $3,500 a month. Once again, pre-tax. After taxes, Medicare, and Social Security, you would take home roughly $750 a week, or roughly $3,000 a month. The first thing that I always budget for is housing costs, which should probably be your biggest line item. So, according to Zillow, a one-bedroom in Nashville will run you roughly $1,500 on average, which on this hourly wage will be roughly 50% of your take-home pay, which unfortunately is out of your budget at this income level. The good rule of thumb is that you want housing to be less than or equal to 30% of your take-home pay. The average price to rent a room in Nashville is $950 a month, which is roughly equal to 30% of your take-home pay. So unfortunately, at this income level, you probably will not be able to afford living alone, at least if you want to build wealth. So you're gonna be looking at places to rent where you're gonna be sharing the cost with roommates. All right, so let's say that you find a room in an apartment or a house for the average price, which is $950 a month. That leaves you with $2,050 for all other expenses. Let's go ahead and get the rest of the non-negotiables out of the way. This is things like utilities, phone bill, Wi-Fi, we'll do car payment, and then car insurance. So for one person renting a room in a house, your share of utilities will probably be, let's say, less than $100 a month. And if it's not, you're probably overpaying for utilities and should try to figure out why. All right, let's say your phone bill. I think the average price for a phone bill in the US is $85 a month. So let's take that higher end of $85 a month. Ideally, you can get this down. You hop on Cricket, you pay off a phone rather than paying a monthly fee for one. But for the sake of this video, we'll just assume $85 a month. For Wi-Fi, ideally, you're splitting this with your roommates. We'll say that your share of Wi-Fi will probably come out to about $30 a month. For car payment, ideally, you have a paid off car, but the reality is that most people don't. So we're going to budget for one. For the sake of this, we're going to assume that you have a 700 credit score, which is good, not perfect, but good. It'll qualify you for a pretty decent loan. We're also going to assume that you are getting a 10 to 15-year-old Asian economy car. These are things like your Honda Civics, your Toyota Priuses, your Toyota Corollas, Hyundai Sonatas, whatever you want to get, but a reliable 10 to 15-year-old Asian economy car. You're not gonna be driving a Lambo, but you can't afford that at $22 an hour. All right, I will list my sources in the description of this video in case you're wondering where I'm getting these numbers from. But the average car payment for a 10 to 15-year-old Asian economy car, if you have a 700 credit score, would come out to between $190 and $280 a month. We're going to assume the higher end here. So we're gonna say $280 a month. For car insurance, because you're driving an older car, for this scenario where you're driving a 10 to 15-year-old Asian economy car, your liability insurance will likely be around $100 a month, whereas full coverage will likely be $200 a month. So we're going to take the average of that and just assume $150 a month for car insurance. Another category that I forgot to mention earlier was renter's insurance. This isn't a huge cost. On the lower end, it should be about 15 bucks a month. On the higher end, it should be about $25 a month. So we're just gonna average that and say $20 a month in renter's insurance. And then you might have some other random fees, let's say like trash or parking. So we're just gonna say random housing fees probably be, let's say, $30 a month. There's not really good data on this specific cost, but we'll just assume that. When you add all these expenses up, that all roughly comes out to $695 a month. We previously had $2,050 left to budget. We got to subtract $695 from that, and now we are left over with $1,355 for the rest of the month. Your next biggest expense is going to be feeding yourself. Just to keep these numbers top of mind, your take-home pay is roughly $3,000 a month. Rent is $950. Other mandatory expenses, this is your car payments and your utilities and phone bill and stuff like that, will come out to roughly $695 a month, which leaves you with $1,355 a month for everything else. Your next biggest expense is going to be feeding yourself. At this income level, you should mostly be eating food that you are making yourself. So we'll budget $75 a week in groceries, which comes out to $300 a month in groceries, which leaves us with $1,055 a month for everything else. Your next biggest expense will probably be gas for your car. So in a 10 to 15-year-old Asian economy car, you're probably getting roughly 25 to 30 miles per gallon. All right, so according to official government data, the average commute in Nashville is roughly 30 minutes each way and roughly 15 miles. So let's say that you're doing that twice a day, 30 miles, 7 days a week. Hopefully you're not working weekends, but this also gives some wiggle room for, obviously if you just want to drive anywhere for your own convenience. But that's roughly 210 miles a week, which at this fuel economy is roughly 8.5 gallons of gas at $4 a gallon, which puts you at roughly $33.60 per week on gas. We're gonna round that up to $40 a week or $160 a month for gas. Subtracting that from the $1,050 a month that we started off with up here leaves us with $895 a month. From here, we have finally reached the point in the budget where most of the non-negotiables are out of the way, and we can start talking about things like fund money, wealth building money, saving money, things of that nature. My rough rule of thumb is that everyone should be saving about 10% of their take-home pay for retirement, which luckily for us, within this budget, that is still possible. Our first thing that we're gonna do with the rest of our fund money is put away $300 a month for retirement. Earlier in the budget, we did not calculate in any pre-tax 401k deductions. But if your job offers a 401k, especially one with a match, you should definitely take advantage of that. And you can factor that in here and subtract that from how much you're investing if you want. For the sake of this video and just to try to keep things simple, we're just going to assume that your job doesn't have a 401k. And personally, what I would do is take this $300 a month and put it into a Roth IRA. And I would invest those funds into a low cost ETF of your choice. Now, after that, we have $595 a month left over. You want to start building an emergency fund if you don't have one already. All in, our non-negotiables, when we come back to this page, come out to roughly $1,500 a month. A good rule of thumb for an emergency fund is 3 months expenses. So at this income level, you would probably want a emergency fund of $4,500. And the off chance that you actually need the money in your emergency fund, you would rather have more of it than less, which is why I recommend bumping that savings goal up to $5,000. At this income level, saving $5,000 might seem like a daunting task, and honestly, it kind of is, I'm not going to lie to you. But the easiest way to reach any of these financial goals is to just go ahead and start. And so at this income level, I would probably be putting $200 a month into a high yield savings account. After that, you still have $395 a month. Now, personally, I would probably put more into the high yield savings account, but I understand that's not for everyone. And honestly, it takes baby steps to get there. So we're just gonna say that this remaining $395 a month is your fund money. This comes out to roughly $100 a week, which I think is a pretty good allowance for a single person. You have $100 a week or $395 a month to basically just go crazy. And you can burn that money and the rest of your expenses are taken care of. You're already putting away 10% of your take-home pay to save for retirement. You're putting away $200 a month into a high yield savings for your emergency fund. So you're covering all the bases, and then this is the wiggle room that you have to actually enjoy life and do as you please. And if if you're thinking I probably won't spend $100 a week, you don't have to spend that money, or you can budget it. You can budget $395 a month in fund money, and then if you only spend $300, you can then shift that remaining $95 to either your high yield savings or your Roth IRA. And something that I think is fun and that is motivating, at least to me, to think about when you're building a budget. Across 12 months, you'd be investing $3,600 a year. The average return of the S&P 500 is roughly 10%. In real money values, it's more like 8% when you're taking into account inflation, but for the sake of ease, we're gonna say 10%. So if you're starting from zero and then contribute this much a year and you're assuming average returns, over the course of 40 years, you could be looking at $1,593,333. And that is with only actually investing $144,000. Once again, not financial advice. This is assuming average returns. We don't know if what's happened in the past will continue to happen in the future. So thank you guys for watching this video. This is my first video. I did Nashville, Tennessee because I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. But I'm going to be making these videos for basically every major city in America. And once again,